There's nothing really amazing about the shell I brought, but I just wanted to tell the story. So after Tropical Storm Francine, that was formed in the Gulf on September 9th, it hit landfall in Louisiana on September 11th, and it was a Category 2 hurricane. I went shelling September 12th. And when I went to Boca Grande, I was gonna go, I went parked at South End, where the beach restaurant is, what, South Grill? South Beach Grill. And I parked there, and I was just gonna go from there north. And when I got down to the beach, there was so many waves, I couldn't even walk because I was in the water. So I decided to go around a seawall, and I got, it was splashing over as I went around, but I thought I would try at the end of Gasparilla State Park. So I went over there, and the rack line was all the way up to where they cored off between the beach and the greens and everything that are planted there. And I'm walking along the rack line, and this is on the rack line. It's a beautiful shell. I would like to take credit for it, but it was sitting near one of the exits. So I think one of the rangers might have found it and just placed it there. I was happy to take it. No one else was around, so it wasn't anybody else's. So sometimes you get double gifts. and at the same time, I found this teeny weeny cone. It's a Florida cone on the same trip. So this and a teeny weeny Florida cone. So that was my story.
So I've chosen to talk about the shark eye, which I learned on the beach, and it is a Atlantic sea snail. And the reason why I talk about it because I like eyes. I'm a nurse, I communicate a lot with that. And eyes are our gateways, windows to our souls. And I found some really other funny little sayings that the eyes will say what your lips won't say. And you should be eye candy. Don't be eye candy, but be soulful. So those are the things I like about it. But someone, probably one of you all, have taught me that this was a shark eye. They're very interesting. Their diet is clams, mollusks, and other moon snails. They do eat each other. Some of them do. But they have like it's called a radula, which is a tongue with a lot of teeth. Poke a hole in something, get some enzymes in there, they make clam chowder out of whatever they're eating. And it might take like 2 days to get that done, which I thought was kind of interesting. They're known as the driller killer, is what I saw in the information. Yeah, I thought it was kind of funny last night when I was doing this. They reproduce by laying thousands of eggs in a sand collar made of mucus and sand. And moms, this is a good thing, how they are designed or developed is from the mother's shell. So I thought that was kind of cool that all moms should get credit for that, right? Because I have 3 kids and none of them look like me. So, yeah. So predators are larger snails, other moon snails, crabs, birds, and fish. But I have to admit, Lori and I might be predators of these shells. No live shells, but we love this shell, and it's just because of the eye. That's why I like it.
My favorite too.
Yeah. So that's it.
I'm going to say I know the story, and it's an amazing, fantastic story. So if Karen doesn't share all the details, because her mother did share them all with me, I will have to interject.
Okay, so how many thrifters do we have here? That's a nice way of saying we're junkers or hoarders. But, I talk about my mom a lot, but my mom has lived with me since she got widowed. She's 87 years old. My mom grew up on Clearwater Beach, and we grew up on Dunedin Beach, and we didn't have air conditioning, so my mom would drive us out to the beach let us swim until the sun went down, then we'd go home because the house would cool off. But anyhow, as a daughter that lives with her mother, an adult daughter, my mom knows how to push all my buttons. Like she created them, she knows where they're at. And one of the things we like to do, it's hard to get someone out when they're older because you're limited as to what they can do. She can't walk the beach anymore. So we go to a lot of thrift stores, or we go to Goodwill bookstore. So we're in Goodwill Bookstore, and my mother's got this on her walker. As you know, look at the different cuts in the mat. That's the first thing I realized about this. And then every shell is cleaned. Whoever did this is really a work of art. But I live in an apartment, and my mother moved all her stuff into my house, and I had a little moment in Goodwill where I took it off of her walker, put it back over on the shelf, and all these people looked at me like, and I'm like, you don't know, you know? And I'm like, Mom, you just don't need that, you know? And we went home without it. And yeah, I know, bad daughter. And as the Lord does, he gave me a little nudge in the middle of the night, and I went, oh, that's just not good. If it's there in the morning, I woke myself up first thing, called Goodwill when they opened. Is it there? Well, of course it's there. Who's going to pay $50 for this in Goodwill, you know? I said, put it behind the counter for me. And I went up and I picked it up and I brought it home to my mom. And she cried. I asked her to forgive me. Just so you know, I closed the deal with her. And, you know, I mean, really, if you want to learn about love, live with your mother. You want to learn how to love someone, live with your mom. And, you know, but I love my mom, and she just absolutely loves it. She has a little sandpiper that sits up here, but I wanted to share this with you. I mean, keep your eyes out in Goodwill. You never know what you'll find. And it was professionally framed. I don't have my reading glasses on. I think it was done in Sarasota. Can you see that, Debbie?
Oh, no, Venice.
Oh, it was done in Venice.
Creative
Framing in Venice. So, I mean, whoever did this really probably spent, I would say, $300 to $400 because of the cuts in the mat. So,
I've got a large one in my house, and there's a member here, Dick.
When you go back up.
His name is Dick.
Where'd she go?
It looks like his work.
really?
Actually, the creative, the woman who owns that, used to be a member here.
No, he's a guy.
Oh,
And she used to do
So
that
Dick-
for-
Make this
I
like-
mean, Shopper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's where,
Oh, so what was his name, Anita?
It was Dick, remember his,
And
it was
him
part
and
of
his wife have the shop.
Yeah,
yeah, right,
Forbush?
She used to be a member,
they were members.
yeah.
Was it Forbush?
yeah.
Yes.
Forbush,
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
He's passed away now,
Yeah,
I
she's
think.
still there.
Okay.
And I have one, and it's really large.
Mhm.
I got it from him, but that looks like his work.
Well,
Her work.
I'm so glad that my mom found it, and I'm glad that it was there when I went back. So it's really a lovely piece. I'm
It is.
happy to share it with you.
That's more like a $600 to $800 job there. Okay, my story is starts in Williamsport, Pennsylvania. It's like, what the heck can you find in Williamsport, Pennsylvania, right? So Nancy and I are on vacation. We're visiting friends. We used to live in Williamsport, and I used to work there. And my friend knows that I like rocks and shells, but his friend just opened up a brand new rock shop. So I go in and we're talking about rocks, and I'm looking at crystals, and I'm looking at all the big stuff. And then my eyes pan across the room, and there's a bunch of little shelves about this high, and they got little tchotchke rocks on it. And then I see it. and I want to run over, but I'm like, I don't want them to know that I know what it is. Don't want them to know. So I casually walk over, and I pick up a couple rocks, and I'm looking at them. Luckily, there were only 3 of us in the store. So then I go over and I pick up what I'm looking at, what I'm interested in, and I'm thinking, if I could get this for $100, boy, this would be a great day. I pick it up, and I look at the price tag, which I will never take off, and it says $5. And this is Williamsport, Pennsylvania. It's like 350 miles away from the ocean, and there's nothing in the Atlantic up there, I'll tell you. So it just goes to show if you collect and your eyes are attuned to what you collect, you can find a Junonia anywhere.
Oh, where's Anita?
Well, I brought things that had to do with the hurricane. The shark's tooth over there that you can see, that is a shark's tooth that I found on Palm Island with a shell group, our club, and those of you that know me know that I'm a birder, probably even a little more than a sheller, and so I started out to the south so that I could catch any birds that were there before they got, before they flew away with everybody going there. And so then I was going up around the end of Palm Island after everybody else had, and I kept meeting all these folks coming back, there's nothing up there, there's nothing up there, there's nothing up there, there's nothing up there. And that shark's tooth came in right at my feet, and then two more big chunks, but they aren't perfect like that one. And then the other shells that are there, I spent this storm. I went over to my sister who lives in North Palm Beach, and so the day after the Hurricane Milton, we went out to Juno Beach, and so that's just north. It's still in Palm Beach County, just south of Jupiter. And just to let you know, they had sand like we had sand. It was, the big dunes, but then as you got down right beside the ocean, then there was a 5-foot drop off. And then there was, and then kids were out surfing and everything because there were big waves and everything. And so the rest of those shells are shells from Juno Beach, and I thought you all would be interested because we're planning on the trip to MacArthur Beach State Park, which is right, just a few miles from Juno Beach over there in Palm Beach County later in the year. And I was interested, if you didn't read it, I found a thorny oyster shell. It doesn't have thorns. It showed it in the book. It just looks just exactly like that. And their most common shell over there is the lady-in-waiting Venus clamshell, and I just think the name is so cool. And we don't have them very much over here. And then I don't know how many people looked to see that among the other things I found was this operculum, and I didn't even realize it was an operc until I got home. But if you didn't see it, it's it's this tiny little thing right here. And what kind of a gastropod it's from, I have no idea. But it was there along with all these other cute little shells.
Brought a couple different things, and this one is very interesting. And I'm not going to be naughty because my mother's up in heaven giving me a Pamela Jane, don't you even think about it. But anyways, I had got a whole bunch of shells from somebody had passed away, and they said, do you want all of this stuff or whatever? And in it, I found this. And I thought it was very interesting, but I don't know doodly squat about it. And I tried to Google, and I tried to bother my friends that were all in bed when I was Googling for today. So I came with no answers, but because we have a wonderful club, and we have a lot of really smart people here that know a whole lot of stuff, I've been told by our resident expert, Miss Karen Huther over here, that this is a glass sponge. And nothing's been done to it other than it's just dried. And Karen said that there's shrimp larvae inside of it, and then there's a symbiotic relationship between the larvae.
That word.
Between the larvae and the shrimp, and they kind of just do that
right.
thing. So it's just kind of really interesting. So, yeah. So if you need to know more about that symbiotic relationship, Karen would be more than happy to tell you, because she's got this whole microbiology like background.
I bet you can't wait for my
don't.
talk.
But anyway, so that's kind of cool. And the other thing that I have up here is information about the chitin. And did I say that right? Yeah, chitin. Oh. So anyways, they kind of are on rocks and attached really, like, you know, a suction cup. And this is it in its entirety, inside and outside, and you kind of have to like cut it off the rock if you want to kill it and have it. But anyway, so that's it in its entirety, and this part down here I think is called a girdle. It's like a membrane. And the two that are here, the membrane and the insides are out, but I thought the color was really pretty.
Is that in the Bahamas? Where'd you get them? Is that from Bahamas?
Yeah, Eleuthera.
It's
Yeah.
Eleuthera.
And this is a fossilized one.
It's a brain.
So I kind of do different things with church groups and women's group or whatever with just educating, and I thought it was kind of cool. I don't even know where I came across this, but I thought it was cool to try to show, you know, how it is on a rock, and there's a picture here, and then, you know, fossilized. So.
Titans are one of the oldest organisms there are.
Yeah, yeah. So I had a little write-up, but this is it, like in its natural state, the way it, you know, attaches, you know, to things. So I just have some pictures up here to show you. So, but anyways, thank you for your help, Miss Karen. She's got this beautiful queen conch.
Okay. Wow. This is my big boy favorite shell. It's a queen from the Keys, and it's in pretty darn good shape. Our Sarasota club went last, I want to say March, to the Missouri Key area. There were about like 8 of us that went down for an afternoon of shelling. We went to the Sanibel show the day before, and then we drove down. I have no idea where we parked our car. Gary Martinez says, park over here. It's across the 7-mile bridge. And there's just a large area, you know, that's not a beach, it's a shoreline out there, but it, you know, goes for miles. It was very low tide, it was ankle deep. And so these shells are very endangered, you probably all know, in the Bahamas from overfishing, over everything, tourism, blah, blah, blah. Out here, they're actually doing really well. They've worked on it. You can't touch one of these to save your life or you will go to jail. They will confiscate your boat, your car, your head, your children. Nothing. So we go out there, we spread all around. We're all, Gary Martinez, one of our really gung-ho guys, he's in Miami. He's way the heck out there. And I mean in the South 40, like, where's Gary? We're all just kind of closer to the shore. Nobody's around me, and Gary, I see him, he's like, and I'm all, there's nobody around. He's like, so he comes in, I go out, and he's holding this thing. It's filthy, it's covered in, you know, 10 million years, because it's really an old one. And he's like, if you want to carry this all the way back, you can have it.
Oh my God.
Oh, yeah.
Empty. This was empty. It was one of the only empty one any of the people on that trip found. We saw hundreds, Lisa, maybe.
All alive.
Everywhere, but they were all alive. So we looked at them and left them, obviously. I mean, you know. So I came back with this, I mean, and after a lot of bleach and scraping, you know, all the blah, blah, blah. It's very pink, and it's got a big, what do you call this part, Karen? Wing. That's okay. That's what I thought. Yeah, he didn't. I mean, it's, I don't know.
Does Gary want it back now?
No, he asked the lip. He didn't want, and I mean, it was slimy, and I, you know, I had a bucket, so I'm like, I don't care. And I hauled this puppy home, and there we go. Missouri Key is the area. From a shell store, you'll find a cut. That's where somebody jammed a tool in there to get the meat, to get the animal, to harvest it for eating. That's what happens in the Bahamas, and that's why they're struggling. There was, you can Google it, National Geographic in the last couple of years had a huge article about how the fishermen are going further out, they're struggling, they're just not finding them, they're overfishing them, they're taking them too young. And so if you ever see one with this hole, you'll know that was one that was, you know, like that shell factory, they used to sell them, and they're smaller and they have the holes. Those are probably from the Bahamas. but you will not find anything
They're starting
Grand
to
in the
Cayman.
key
I
keys
was
like that.
in Grand Cayman and came upon like a
Piles.
dozen of them that were empty and.
They
it's-
they have
it's-
conch
literally, you have
critters,
them like a
conch
mountain.
everything. I've been to the Bahamas. It's the main. It's their diet. It's the main diet.
The thing is,
Yeah.
they actually are taking whelks now and giving them as conch fritters.
Oh, people don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not the same, let me tell you.
Yeah. Yeah, but
I saw on Martha's Vineyard also, you have a whole big bin of knobbed whelk. That is what they're using for
That's what I was saying.
they probably can't get them as their.
You can, and they can pass it off. It doesn't taste the same, for sure. Mine's gonna be a little different. I'm a scientist, so I'm gonna give a little bit of science with this. This shell is in my collection, and I like Murexes, those are my favorites, but the Tritons, I'm really fond of Tritons. And what this is in the family Somatium, and it's a radarized species. And it's called common names an angular triton, okay? And so you can tell, I mean, it's got a triangle shape. And the interesting thing about this, if anybody's seen it, have you ever heard of the femorales? That's the angular triton. They're gorgeous. It's a smaller. That's its close relative. And what I wanted to tell you, the angular triton, the femorales have been around for Linnaeus authored it back in 1758. That's how old it is. This shell is a radarii, close species, and Anthony Diatello and Barbara Myers, they were the authors when they named it. 1984. 1758, 1984. This is a relatively new species, and they determined it's really different than the femorale. Same family, but, and I was going to tell you about it because it's interesting. They're just gorgeous for one thing. They're a very heavy shell, but it's locations and where they find it. And this is different than most shells. You can find it in the Gulf of Mexico. You can find it actually in the Florida Keys, we just talked about, and even in the East Coast. The hurricanes and things like that will bring them in. But it goes all the way through the Caribbean. Eleuthera, we got Eleuthera a lot. They have gorgeous ones. Debbie got one in Cat Island. So, and then it goes all the way through the Caribbean, all the way to Brazil. That's a large habitat. Shells don't do that normally. Usually it's a very concentrated area where you find them. Janonias are found in Florida where it's found. It's not found on the West Coast, it's found on the East Coast. These shells, and this is in my collection, but this is from Brazil. And they're larger down there. They're a heavy deep water shell, but you can find them even in shallow water. They're on sand bottoms. Their habitat really is about 25 meters. This one is to 45 meters. And this one is found down 45 meters down. And what I'm going to say about that, how does it get there? And it's like, what's going on? How did they go from the Gulf of Mexico all the way to Brazil? Right. And what it is, when they reproduce, they have a larva. And it's an open water larva, very long lasting. It's very robust. And so it can ride the currents and go all down to these different areas. And the other angular, the femorale, they're in the same areas, but they don't have the same habitat. They kind of like, you stay here and I'll go over here. But you can find them. And how they find them, they're down that deep. Local fishermen usually, they go out and they dredge lobster pots. And this is a predatory sea snail. It goes after things and it gets into the pots after the lobsters. They drag them up and that's what they find. The shell itself, it's beautiful. I hope I don't drop this, but I'll cry if I do. And no. Ain't gonna happen, Pam. Ain't gonna happen. But you can see the colors of it. They're beautiful oranges, of shadings of orange, and then it goes into this lovely browns. And that's typical of all tritons. You can see the operculum. It's a very relatively small operculum for a shell this big. They're very heavy. If anybody wants to come up and touch it, it's $5. But and what I wanted to say about it, really, I mean, this the size. This is a big shell, really. I mean, they usually are between 125 to 200. 240 is the world record. This is a 210, so it's rated as a huge specimen. But and the Brazilians, they seem to be a little bigger there. But what I was going to say, if you see this, the way it waves on the whorls, and it makes these exquisite wings on the varices, you know, and so does the femoral. But it's almost like, have you guys been out west and you've gone into Utah or Colorado, and you see the sandstone? This reminds me of that. It's just the same feel. They're not red, but it's almost like that. And I think what nature does, you know, and it's just, I just wanted to share it with you and just think it's a gorgeous, gorgeous shell.
It is. Thank you.